So it's rock star time here. There are only a few people that kind of have a one-word name in this kind of environment. We got Oprah, we got Madonna, and we have Waj, the big three. They announced me as Chief Content Officer. I'm actually here today, and I'm excited as the father of 2 adolescent girls. So I'm excited to be here. Who here is a parent?
Oh my God, they're all parents.
Who here, keep the hands up, who here is not a parent, mentors people? So we pretty much got 100%. Everybody here is in for a treat. And most of you know Waj's background, but just first as an educator, 35 years as a teacher at Palo Alto High School, teaching journalism and teaching English. California Teacher of the Year in 2002. So we have a super teacher, and we have somebody who knows how to bring up daughters. As again, most of you know, Waj has 3 daughters. Susan runs YouTube, and Google was founded in her garage.
That's correct.
So that's enough, right? We're done. But no, then Anne founded 23andMe.
Yes.
And then you have Janet, who's saving the world as a professor at UCSF and is in Africa with teaching pediatrics, correct?
That's right. Yes.
So that's 3 for 3. So we are here. We're going to spend the next 20 minutes or so figuring out how the hell can we try to learn even 1% of that, and we're all going to have a really good session here. Before what you do, and again, you have a book out, How to Raise Successful People, and so we want to learn. Here it is. But we want to learn about that.
Do you know what?
What?
They all get one in their book bag.
Whoa.
And
guess what?
I signed it.
Pre-signed. That's going to save you about 2 hours. Well, after this session, they're going to go on eBay for about $50 each. So we're going to throw some knowledge here. What I thought was very interesting about your parenting technique, first of all, is a lot of people are passing down family traditions, but you really you hacked parenting because you did this yourself. Maybe you could share kind of your background, because it was not like you passed on what you learned. You kind of figured this out yourself, but I think your childhood kind of informed a lot of this. So maybe we could start there.
So I didn't have the ideal childhood. I didn't have a childhood that you want to replicate. And it's because my parents were immigrants and came from Russia. My father was an artist, and in case you didn't remember, artists don't earn a lot of money. So he came here, land of milk and honey, and he didn't get any honey. And so we were pretty much hungry all the time, and he was actually pretty much mad all the time. And he actually subscribed to this system called spoil the child, or spare the rod, spoil the child. Do you remember that? Or hopefully you didn't experience it. But I did. And so I did not want to recreate this when I had children. I knew that this was really bad. It was counterproductive in many ways for me. So when I had my 3 daughters, I said to myself, out loud, basically, I want to create the childhood for them that I wish I would have had. And it turns out that you have to do that consciously, because if you don't do it consciously, you are going to recreate your childhood. Everybody does it instinctively. And also, that's one of the reasons why it's so hard to change education, because people tend to teach the way they were taught. And the way we were taught back, I don't know, all these years, is that you must follow instructions. And the people that are the best are the ones that follow the instructions the closest. And so that's one of the things. So with my childhood, and then wanting to recreate a new childhood for my daughters, the main thing I wanted to do was to teach them to be as independent as possible. Independence was the key. And so I did a few crazy things. I think it's in the book. I won't tell you all the crazy things, but there's a lot. Well, one of them is that we had this swimming pool in the backyard.
It's safe to say, by the way, you were not a helicopter parent.
Oh, no, well, that's true. I was the opposite
you were the
of the
anti-helicopter parent.
Swimming pool in the backyard, and I decided that I was not going to be one of those people that had like one of those terrible stories you read about every summer about the kid accidentally falls in the pool and the parent is just there, having a drink or something. Nope, that wasn't going to happen to me. So I taught them all to swim early. So I bet you would not guess how early it is possible to teach a child to swim. A baby? 6 months? Well, actually, you could do 6 months. I didn't try 6 months, but I did try 12 months. And they could swim by 12 months. Can you imagine? They could barely walk.
They were in the womb swimming. They were out a little bit and then back into the water. So.
It turns out that they don't do the Australian crawl, though. They kind of swim like little porpoise, you know? They swim around and then they come up for air and so forth.
So how, all right, so tell us about how it must have been, you were pushing a little, and that you were really encouraging them to really whatever they find their own path.
It was kind of street smarts. I wanted them so part of the reason I wanted them to learn to read a little bit so they could see where they were, you know, in terms of like, this street is this name. We always named the streets. So the number one place they learned to read was Sesame Street. They always watched Sesame Street. And one of the great reasons that I loved Sesame Street is because I got to sleep in an hour longer. I loved it.
You also turned them into little entrepreneurs. I mean, you're very eloquent about talking. You didn't give them very much.
I don't give them anything.
That would qualify as not very much.
Right, very little. They had to earn it.
And so they were selling, right?
Well, so, you know, they were always coming up with ideas on how to sell things. And we had this neighbor, and she had a very prolific lemon tree. And she wanted all the lemons, you know, to be gone off the tree. There were too many. And so my daughters came up with this idea of, we'll pick the lemons for you if you give us this lemons. And so she's like thrilled. The only thing is what they did is they went up and down the street and sold all those lemons to all our neighbors. They made a lot of money. And then in addition to that, they sold them back to this woman. And she bought them. Can you believe? She was so sweet.
Cesar Chavez would not have approved.
So no, they were very entrepreneurial. And then they took their earnings and they went, we had a local 5 and dime store. They don't have those anymore, right? They don't even have dollar stores. And you would spend at least, you know, an hour or two there deciding how they were going to spend their earnings.
So they understood the value of money.
Yeah.
But that said, you and your husband had done much better than your parents. So how hard was it to fight the urgency to give them that life that you did not have?
It's hard. So I just want to say, you know, for you, it's hard to not recreate what you had. And so you just have to have it on the
or to try to
conscious
improve
level.
what you, I mean, the thing is you didn't have hardly anything, and you in some ways kind of forced them a little bit into your childhood, where you're like, well, you're going to have to earn it. A lot of people in your situation would have said, here, I want you to have what I didn't have.
Well, so that's one of the problems that I see today, is that we all have a lot. Well, not all. There are many of us that have a lot. And so it's our urge.
All in Palo Alto.
Well, many in Palo Alto. And I live at Stanford, so, you know, a lot of them are there too. So it's important to resist the urge to give your child everything you didn't have. And the question is, why would you want to resist? Why wouldn't you want to do that? And so if you can just think about how you get creativity and innovation, it comes when you don't have everything. And so we need as a group to resist doing that, so you can help your child develop a sense of creativity and innovation. And one of the articles that I just posted recently on my Facebook account is, give your child the opportunity this summer to be bored, to really have nothing to do. How about for just a little bit? I know we're all really intent on, you know, Monday is one thing, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all the days of the week or some activity. But maybe if you want to collaborate with your child, which is sort of part of the message in the book, perhaps you can ask them to help plan the week. Maybe they just want to stay home and do nothing with their friends, or just hang out in the backyard. So it's hard in these days to get that to happen.
And then how do you fight off the pressure that your kids put on you? Because all their friends get what they, they all have an iPhone. My kids have an iPhone 6 and they feel deprived because everyone else has an iPhone X. I mean, that's absurd, of course, but how do you, so as a parent, when you were doing this, you were raising them in a upper middle class area. How did you, I'm sure they came home and said, so-and-so, all my friends get allowance, why don't I get an allowance?
Well, I did have that experience, so in that era when they were growing up, I was against television back then. And it's just because I didn't want them to sit around and watch TV all the time. And at that point, the biggest TVs were 24-inch and 30-inch TVs, color TVs. And I didn't want them to feel deprived. So I said, okay, we'll get a TV. Okay, so they had Mr. Rogers, in Sesame Street, so I thought that was important. But just let me tell you what kind of TV I got. I bought a 13-inch black and white TV. And you had to dial it, right? So they became very good at dialing it in. But, they weren't as addicted to it as they would have been if they would have had one of those giant 24-inch TVs. And so, it's okay, today they're not giant, right? Today it's, okay, 96-inch TV.
I think those TVs now are in our cars. How do you, what do you think, again, you've been seeing, you've been at Palo High School, the kids have stayed the same age as you've gotten older, and you've seen kind of...
No, I'm the same age.
How have you seen the effect of screen time on children, how it's affected them?
Well, actually, the screen time has had a negative effect. Kids tend to use, unless they're trained, they compare themselves to other kids. And so everybody has pictures of themselves on Instagram or Facebook, or, well, actually, kids don't use Facebook anymore, but Snapchat or something like that, always looking happy, right? And always doing stuff that, oh my God, I wish I'd be doing that. And then I just have to remind them that people only take pictures of themselves when they're doing fun things. And so the world is not full of fun. It makes it seem like that. So all kids need to have a training, a media arts training, which is something that I talk about, how to pick out fake news, how to pick out things that just seem like poorly researched, and also how to understand social media and the impact it has on you. We don't train our kids in that at all. Why aren't we doing that in the schools?
And how much does this affect, there's been a spike in mental illness and stress with children. I mean,
right.
So what can parents who are dealing with that right now, how can they assuage that?
Well, first of all, I don't recommend children under the age of 2 have any phones, no electronic device. And if you go to any supermarket or any store, you'll see people with kids in a baby carriage and the kid has a phone. Really. So what are you teaching them to do? How are they interacting with the environment? They're interacting with a phone. So when they're 8 years old and demanding a phone, you are the one.
They just want to watch YouTube.
Oh, yeah. No, that's but so you can't do that. Then between 2 and 5, I recommend you pick something that you think is going to be intelligent for them to watch. And a good resource, I don't know if you know about it, is Common Sense Media. If you don't know about Common Sense Media, I advise you to write it down. Common Sense Media ranks all the apps and the phone and the movies, and you can find pretty much everything reviewed on Common Sense Media. So then you go with your child and you can collaborate and say, at 3 to 5, here's a good show for you or an app for you to play with. What do you think about that? Mm-hmm. And
you can steer them.
You can steer them. And then over 5, I think it should be collaborative. You talk to them about the advantages. This is good. How about Minecraft? Minecraft, actually, you learn a lot in Minecraft. It's like Lego online. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of stuff out there that is not so great. But I do think one of the great things is, by the way, making little videos. Do you know the creativity that goes into kids making videos? It's really pretty amazing.
So a lot of what you're talking about, it runs against, a few years ago it was all about, Tiger Mom and, Amy Tua. And I know you guys disagreed on a lot.
So we had a debate in Mexico before 5,000 people at something called the City of Ideas in Puebla, Mexico. And it was me versus Amy Tua. Yes, it was quite an interesting experience.
You were in the tiger's den, and so what was the outcome?
Tiger's
so who won?
Den. Well, she went first because she said she would go first. And
So Tiger Mom's
okay,
there,
whatever, Tiger Mom. And then she kept talking. We had 30 minutes. And she kept talking and kept talking. She didn't ever stop talking. It was like 20 minutes in. It's like, I think I need a little bit of time. And during that time, I don't know if you've read that book on the Tiger Mom. She had her best intentions. She tried to help, but her theory is that the mom, I know the best. And therefore, you are going to do what I tell you to do. And if you don't do it, then you're going to get into a lot of trouble. And she actually punished her kids in ways that were questionable. And she said to the audience that parenting was one of the worst and hardest things that she did. She thought it was really terrible. It's all online. I'm not telling you anything that's not there. Anyway, I had my 10 minutes of talking. They gave me 5 extra. And what I said was absolutely the opposite. I loved being a parent. My kids were exciting to be with, and also my poor children. I used them sort of like guinea pigs. I tried all my educational philosophy out on them. And it's like, oh my God, it seems to work the first time. I'll do it again the second time. I'll do it the third time. Oh, it works really well. Anyway, at the end of that session, the audience got to hear. They asked, so what do your kids do, Amy? And she said what they did. I think one of them was in college at the time. And then it's kind of hard to beat me, I think. And so that did it. I got a standing ovation.
All right.
So having fun with your kid is the most important thing.
I'm going to try to beat you here in that we asked around. I was walking around earlier, and I also reached out to my network. Try to stump the ultimate parent. I asked people for their ultimate parenting problem to see if not even you could come up with a solution for it.
Oh.
So here we got a couple here. All right. How do you deal? I got a kid. I got a daughter. How do you deal with a snitch? And how do you deal with a snitch? And does that change as they get older? Snitch issues.
Okay, so
it's not Dr. Seuss.
Wait just a minute. One of the things in this book that I talk about, I have an acronym to help you remember what's important. It's called, the acronym is TRIC, and it stands for trust, respect, independence, collaboration, and kindness. And that's what I say belongs in all the parenting relationships and in the schools. Teachers need to trust the students, respect the students. The same thing is true in the parenting. And so the snitch problem comes about when there is a lack of trust and communication between the child and the parents. And so one thing, my daughters wrote the introduction to this book, and one thing that they said is that they were never afraid to tell me anything. Some of the stuff is kind of hair-raising. They weren't afraid. And it's because there was always an open line of communication. No matter what they did, I was willing to listen and to talk to them about whatever it was. And so that's what I would advise that person to do. Have their daughter read the book.
All right.
Yes, and then say, we're on a new way of parenting, and now we're going to work on trust and respect.
All right, let's do 2 more. This one is less about raising kids than raising husbands. How do you deal with thinking?
Raising husbands?
Yes. How do you deal with thinking your partner is simply wrong about something parenting, like being too strict? I know you're never supposed to disagree in front of the kids, but sometimes it's just not possible to agree.
So I would suggest that both parents read the book. They can work together. Parenting is 2 parents working together. Remember, part of TRIC is C, collaboration. You have to collaborate. It's a family issue as well as a parenting issue.
All right, another question. A boy and a girl, the boy is older and stronger, in the car for 10 hours. How do you decide who gets the middle console to sleep on?
So, back in those days when we were traveling, we liked to travel a lot. We had a Volkswagen van, and there was the big seat in the back. There's no separations between the seat. And so, I'm not kidding, they would like draw an invisible line. One here is like, and the next thing I would hear, she's like an inch into my space,
Right. Right.
Don't. So what you need to do, again, is to get them to collaborate on whatever it is. Today, you have a really easy time, because that's the only place that I sanction a phone or some kind of an electronic device on a 10-hour trip. In my situation, it was really hard. We were busy, they learned a lot of botany. It's like, how many can see, there's palm trees and, elm trees, and how many trees can you pick out, and what kind are there, and you look it up in your book and so forth. But, I had to come up with games. We also did a lot of singing, which was hard on your ears. But, so that's what I would advise.
I've got about 10 more, but we're out of time. But are you hanging around?
10 more questions?
10 more questions, but we have no more time.
Oh,
if you're hanging around.
I'm here.
She's here.
Happy
you could do it. It could be DIY with Waj out in the hall. And everyone's got this book. It really, as a father of 2 daughters, it really is a good book. And I'm already rethinking a bunch of stuff. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for what you've done for the world. And
Thank
we
you.
appreciate it.